Okay, so in today's reading, we're reading 1 Corinthians 9, 1 through 14, and Paul is addressing criticism from some of his critics in Corinth. So he lifts a defense of some of the rights he has as an apostle and as the planter of the church there. He has a right to marry like the other apostles and like the Lord's brothers. He has a right to make a living by the gospel. And he spends most of his time going into detail on that in this section. And so Paul starts with his logic by listing how even in everyday examples we have people who will work and contribute, like soldiers, farmers, and vineyard workers who will put in effort and work, but not at their own expense. They expect to share in the results of that, so they expect to get a crop back if they're part of working in the vineyard, for example. But more importantly, Paul then appeals to Scripture to defend his right and the rights of any church planter or minister of the gospel to share in material blessings of the church, to make a living by that so that they can focus on their ministry. And he goes to the Old Testament law to do this. So in verses 8 through 12, he says, "Do I say these things on human authority? Does not the law say the same? For it is written in the law of Moses, you shall not muzzle an ox when it treads out the grain. Is it for oxen that God is concerned? Does he not certainly speak for our sake? It was written for our sake, because the plowman should plow in hope, and the thresher thresh in hope of sharing in the crop. If we have sown spiritual things among you, is it too much if we reap material things from you? If others share this rightful claim on you, do not we even more?" And then Paul goes down to verses 13 and 14 to kind of repeat the same point. And he says, "Do you not know that those who are employed in the temple service get their food from the temple, and those who serve at the altar share in the sacrificial offerings? In the same way, the Lord commanded that those who proclaim the gospel should get their living by the gospel." So, as a command, we should be doing this, and we should be glad to help, because when we contribute as the church, that frees up the ministers of the gospel to focus on our spiritual needs, and then we can provide for their material needs. And thankfully, through Evangel's continued obedience in providing, we as the staff can continue doing what God has called us to do. So we want to thank you for your generosity and obedience.